I'm Angie, and you're watching Dontaesboxingnation.
Dontaesboxingnation, what's going on, guys? So when Mexico's own president of the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, came out and said that Canelo Alvarez is still #1, the best fighter in the world, right after getting completely dominated by Bivol, him saying this about Canelo Alvarez, it wasn't really surprising. That's why I didn't make a video about it. I mean, let's not forget, this is the same guy who defended Canelo Alvarez for testing positive for steroids, PEDs. So while it's extremely expected for the WBC president to say extremely ridiculous, biased things towards Canelo Alvarez, Andre Ward's reaction to what the president said was actually a lot more interesting. Andre Ward, he said, "I do agree with Mauricio Suleiman that Canelo should not be dropped completely from the pound-for-pound list because of a loss. Canelo has put in too much work and he didn't get blown out. But you can't hold the #1 spot after a loss. Too many great fighters deserve to be on the list." Someone responded to Andre Ward by saying the fight wasn't competitive, but I agree with the second part of what you said. Andre, he responded by saying, "I'm going off the scorecards. I'm not getting into the weeds about what I had at score. When I say blowout, I mean he wasn't knocked out without putting up a fight." Let me start off by saying this. Andre Ward is definitely right when he says you can't be considered pound for pound #1 when you just came off of a loss. There's way too many great fighters on the list. All of that made sense. But what I really didn't understand, well, there's a couple things I didn't understand. First of all, why did Andre Ward say, "But I do agree with Mauricio Suleiman," when it comes to Canelo Alvarez still being on the list? Why is Andre Ward saying, "I agree with him" when it comes to that, when Mauricio, he never said Canelo Alvarez should still be on the list? Mauricio said Canelo Alvarez, he should be considered #1, the best fighter in the world. So why is Andre Ward going out of his way to say, "I agree with the WBC president," when in all reality, the WBC president, he didn't say anything that Andre Ward agreed with? Andre Ward just put words into his mouth and he overcompensated by saying, "I agree with him that Canelo should still be pound for pound on the list." The conversation was never about if Canelo Alvarez should still be on the list. That's a different conversation. But this is the problem with a lot of black fighters today. They feel if they say something that is perceived as negative about a fighter who's not black, even when they're telling the whole truth, they have to come back and give them some type of consolation prize. They feel they have to go out of their way to balance things out, since they just said something about Canelo Alvarez that maybe the boxing world doesn't want to hear, regardless if it's true or not. This is exactly why Clarissa Shields, she came out right after Canelo Alvarez lost and she posted something saying, "Stop hating on Canelo Alvarez." But since when do we hear people saying stop hating on the actual loser? Wouldn't it make more sense to say stop hating on the winner when some fans are trying to make excuses or take credit away from the win? I mean, just think about it. After Shakur Stevenson beat Oscar Valdez, he said, "Man, I'm receiving a lot of hate." He was like, the hate is real. Because see, before Shakur Stevenson beat Oscar Valdez, he actually said, after I beat Oscar Valdez, I'm going to be loved, I'm going to be a star, etc., etc. But since the majority of these black boxers are completely oblivious to the racial double standards that are right in front of their face in the sport of boxing every day, they're actually shocked. They're completely surprised when they get these big, huge wins, and the same race fans that were giving them no credit before the win are still not giving them any credit or not even congratulating them after they get the win. They're still receiving the same type of racist comments. In fact, the bigger the win is for a fighter on the coincidental list, usually the worse the reception is from these race fans on the internet. So the point is, Claressa Shields, she should have been posting videos telling people to stop hating on Shakur Stevenson, because he's the one receiving the hate. If a black fighter lost, you would never hear people coming out saying, stop hating on him because he lost. And you certainly wouldn't hear it from black people, because black people, they know the majority of fans that are racist don't want to hear that. These black fighters only want to say things that they feel is accepted. In other words, they want to say the things that the race fans approve, because the majority of boxing fans are race fans, unfortunately. And yet, while they're looking for their approval, black fighters like Claressa Shields, Andre Ward, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, just all of them, they continue to get completely disrespected by these same group of fans that they are, as Andre Ward will put it, agreeing with. Deontay Wilder, he loses to Tyson Fury. And I didn't hear Claressa Shields come out and say, stop hating on Deontay Wilder. All those racist fans from America that were celebrating Deontay Wilder losing. Not one comment from Claressa saying stop hating. After Canelo lost to Bivol, Mike Tyson went out of his way to make a video trying to give Canelo Alvarez tips on what he could do better in the rematch to beat Bivol. But yet we didn't see any of these videos of Mike Tyson giving Deontay Wilder tips after the first, second, or third fight against Tyson Fury. We didn't see these type of videos from Mike Tyson because he never put them out, because they feel it is more accepted to help out Canelo Alvarez, make him feel better after a loss. Tell people to stop hating on Canelo Alvarez because he lost. These black fighters, they know if you say something like that, they're definitely going to receive less racist comments from the race fans, at least for the next week or two, until that story gets old, or one of these black fighters have another fight scheduled, especially if it's scheduled against an opponent who's not black. Then everything goes back to normal when it comes to the comments. Listen, when it comes to Andre Ward going out of his way to say Canelo Alvarez is still pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, how can Canelo Alvarez be still considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world when he's not the best fighter at light heavyweight? He's not the best fighter at 168, because you have David Benavidez there, someone who Canelo most likely won't fight. Listen, this is not like the UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya trying to move up to light heavyweight, losing there, coming back down in middleweight, and he's still the best fighter in his division. He's still taking on all of the best challengers. He's taking on the number one contenders. He's not vacating his belts. Canelo Alvarez, he's not fighting David Benavidez, David Morrell. He avoided Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andrade for 7 years now. And as soon as Canelo Alvarez steps up in competition, he gets completely dominated. Every single time Canelo Alvarez stepped up in competition and took on a tough challenge, he either flat out lost or the fight ended in controversy, where everyone felt the other guy won. Before the Bivol fight, Canelo, he hasn't had a really tough, dangerous opponent in nearly 4 years. And as soon as he's forced to take an opponent that he didn't even want to fight, as soon as he's forced to take on a tough challenge, he loses. How can a fighter like that be considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world? I mean, who is he pound for pound better than? Caleb Plant? Billy Joe Saunders? Caleb Smith? Avni Yildirim? Because you can't even say he's pound for pound better than David Benavidez. He would have to get in the ring and prove that. See, this is what Andre Ward, he should have been saying. Andre Ward should have been saying, if Canelo Alvarez really wants to prove that he's pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, why don't you fight Andrade? Why don't you fight Jamal Charlo? Why don't you fight David Benavidez? It makes no sense to me, because Andre Ward was treated just like Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, and even Devin Haney. Old media protected Gennady Golovkin from Andre Ward just like they protected Canelo Alvarez from Andrade and Jamal Charlo. But Andre Ward, he isn't going to bring up any of these points because he knows this is not what the race fans want to hear in the sport. Something else Andre Ward said that really made no sense is when he said the fight wasn't a blowout. Did you guys know in the NBA, when a team wins by 20 points, they consider that a blowout? I mean, that's the exact word that they use. So it can be said that Bivol, he actually won 10 rounds to 2. That's a blowout. Andre Ward, he was saying, well, you know, it's not like he got knocked out and was completely out of the fight. It don't matter if it's a layup or a slam dunk. Both shots are worth 2 points. And there's no doubt about it that Bivol, he definitely beat Canelo Alvarez by 20 points in this fight. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo Deki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodeki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.
My name is Chris, and I'm all the way here from Anchorage, Alaska at ScalpCarolinas, and I'm here for my second treatment of SMP. Well, I was sitting at home one day and going over my Facebook page, and they have different, like advertisements popping up, and I saw one for SMP, and I saw some pictures of some guys, before and after, and I was looking at that, and it caught my attention, so I Googled it. SMP, nothing showed up in my area. So, I did a little more research, and all of a sudden, ScalpCarolinas popped up in the web browser. So I started watching his videos and seeing all the reaction from all the other people. We talked on the phone, we made appointments and everything. I sent him pictures, and he looked at them, and I was like, can you fix this? And, he pretty much said, no problem. My first session, he made me feel extremely comfortable. It was almost like I was talking to family. He started, and during the whole treatment, we talked and, about our families and our life, and, and things that he does and things that I do. And before I know it, the first session was over. When you see someone doing something that they love, as much as I see Enoch Glover love what he does, it shows in his work. I wouldn't point anyone in any other direction but here to North Carolina, ScalpCarolinas, to get this done.